And that's why I always sleep with my shoes on. Welcome everyone to week 2 of the bracket stage of the Link to the Past Go Mode podcast mentor tournament. My name is Walter the Fourth, and I'm joined by Jay Misha. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking.
So week 2, we're into the standard mode now, which is a little bit interesting in a special sense because we get random weapons, no guaranteed source anymore. So can make some of these starting routes quite interesting when you have to use some weapons that you normally might not do in the castle.
Yeah, this should be fun because this is, of course, the first week we're doing standard mode. Previously, the closest thing we've had to it is Ambrosia, so it'll be really interesting to see what weapon we get and see how our runners handle whatever pops up.
Yeah, for sure. So today, I'm actually not 100% sure how to pronounce this first name. Is it ACZ?
I believe it's SCZ, though it could be
SCZ.
wrong.
Okay, yeah, that sounds more like it. And then we have Jerry Ducia on the other screen here. So it's going to be hopefully a good one here.
Yeah, this should be a lot of fun. I got a chance to commentate Jerry's week 1 race all the way back in week 1 of the Swiss. So it'll be a lot of fun to see how much he's progressed since that time. And we're off. Yeah, we're going to get our first look at Link's house item, bombs. Very nice.
Yeah, that's always nice. Probably means that you're just going to get bombs from Uncle as well.
Yeah, always, of course, really nice to get bombs here early in our escape so that we don't have to worry about our prize pack drops, be able to get those 3 items in the back of escape. No problem.
Yeah, that's especially some weapons from the Uncle you might not be able to farm as much. So then it's even more important to get those bombs early on. It looks like we're going with the bow today. That's probably one of the the better weapons you can get, because it's always going to be guaranteed to be required, and it's also like you have a lot of ammo with it.
Yeah, the bow's always really nice because, of course, assuming that Eastern Palace does end up being crystal, it makes an early play over there a little bit more inviting, enticing.
So we see, you guys see them go through here. It only needs 2 arrows per the blue guards, which is a pretty nice and quick way to kill them. You can also use the bow on the ball and chain guard as well. Need 4 for it, but if you go for that strat, it should be faster than going for the pots. With getting all of the 30 arrows, you have like so many opportunities to have ammo left after all the kills as well, if you need to farm or anything like that.
Yeah, and even if our runners do run out, it is built into standard mode, so that if you do a save and quit, you will get a refill. So should be no worries there. We do get 10 bombs here, so even more explosives.
Yeah, that's technically one of the uncle weapons we're finding here in Escape. But it's really good. Gonna guarantee that they have like no worries for bombs both in Kakariko and then going into Softshore as well, without having to buy anything from the shops.
Yeah, we have basically everything we could want here early, so this is one of the friendlier starts you can get in standard mode. So we see here Jerry going with a sort of hybrid, using 1 pot and then 2 arrows, and get chased into the cell by the green guard, but he'll be able to make it out no problem.
Yeah, it was a little bit awkward there because the guard was kind of standing in between him and Zelda there for a while.
Yeah, you can sometimes get a little unlucky with the green guard RNG if he notices you before you get over too far to the other side of the screen. Can kind of get in your way. In this sort of mode, though, where we're not trying to death warp or not trying to mirror out, I usually just kill him before trying to deal with the ball and chain guard, just to get him out of the way.
Alright, so Assisi is a little bit ahead here early on, so it's gonna be the first one to head into the dark rooms. We already got the small key, so it could be anything in that Dark Spheres chest.
Yeah, and of course, with standard mode, similar to Ambrosia, we're going to have a light cone here, so no worries on that. And yeah, so far, I think Sid has had some pretty efficient movement. I've been pretty impressed there. And Jerry's had trouble in a couple of rooms with some of these enemies, but there's so much time for him to make up ground here. No worries just yet. Going to do a little bit of extra killing on SCZ's sides on the ropes there.
Yeah, I just shot a couple of arrows to the left there, probably hoping to clear the way a little bit so you don't have to bump into the snakes here, because it can be a little bit tricky to get past them when you don't have a sword to just deflect them away from taking damage.
Yeah, of course, yet another aspect of standard mode. Similar to open mode from last week. No sword, so who knows how long it's going to be before we're able to get one. And this is actually one of the trickier rooms here with something like the bow. See on SCZ's side, trying to get this key rat, and gets it after a couple of attempts.
Yeah, it has to be a little bit careful. Is that half a heart right now? The rats only do quarter hearts, so he's not in one-hit KO mode quite yet, but definitely needs to watch out a little bit. But there is a couple of hearts here in the back of Escape, so as long as we get into that room, we should be fine.
Yeah, you can see him being a little bit more careful there, and this is actually giving Jerry an opportunity to catch back up.
Getting a very nice hook shot there. Would have been maybe a little bit nicer if they got it in the front of escape, because that would have made the rat rooms a little bit easier, but you take what you can get.
Yeah, and I like Jerry there. I'm not sure if maybe Vitor mentioned this to him. Using the bomb to go through the upper exit there from that escape room. The only thing I would have liked to see is him pull out drop the bomb a little bit sooner. That going that route is faster if you have the bombs to spare, but you do have to make sure you're dropping the bomb early enough to, time the timer on the explosion to get you the full benefit.
Alright, so we're out of escape. It looks like both runners are going to head towards the forest first and then probably into Kakariko. Makes a lot of sense. That's pretty much the normal play for most runners in the standard or even in an open suit, to be honest, as well. We did pick up 300 rupees as well, which is going to be nice. We can do the bottle vendor and already like halfway to have our money for Sora as well.
Yeah, we're sitting in pretty good position here. And I feel like this has kind of evolved to be the more standard routing here. If you've got plenty of bombs and, as we see, flippers there, and the thieves drop down. But if you've got bombs, you can skip Lumberjack, checking Lumberjack until you've got boots and route it in with Bonk Rocks. See an interesting choice here from SCZ. Maybe they're trying to figure out what they want to do routing wise. I was wondering if they were going to go just skip Kakariko for now, do something a little non-standard with those flippers, but I guess they are. Yeah, so this looks like a Houlihan play.
Yeah, so they might be either going straight for the flipper stuff or maybe, did fall in there a little bit too early, so it's going to have to do that one more time. But so either they're probably going to go straight for the flipper stuff or just maybe go South Shore into the flippers locations.
Yeah, them going for Houlihan definitely tells me that they want to just route all the way through Zora, whatever they're planning on doing. So this should be interesting to see how this, now that we've branched off here, and see what Jerry gets in Kakariko.
Yeah, it can definitely be a benefit to do South Shore and all of that first, because you could get items that would be helpful to have the first time into Kakariko, like the flute or just a bottle to get some extra checks.
So, of course, the method being used here is the one that you'll typically see once you've found flippers, because the most, I should say the least complicated one is the one involving the sort of useless fairy entrance and drop down. But once you have flippers, that method is no longer available. So you have to bomb yourself into the grave drop down into escape to displace Link's sprite enough to get into Houlihan.
Ooh, and there is the flute in Kakariko, so unfortunately for Zed's part, it's probably not going to pay off too much to delay Kakariko, because they're not going to be able to flute too much here in the early game, but probably after the South Shore, their first trip is going to be Kakariko anyways, so they won't be without it for too long.
Yeah, I should get it very soon, but this is actually going to make Jerry's routing a lot simpler, and they can get to some out of the way spots a little bit more quickly, and can really actually afford to put off doing Zora for a while until they have enough money. So yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't look like this sort of deviation is going to work out too much for SCZ, but things could change. See what's here in Mini Moldorm.
Yeah, that's always the risk you take with delaying Kakariko for a little while, but at the same time you're not delaying it for too long, so even in the worst case scenarios you don't end up losing too much time. And that's gotta be like one of the most convenient spot to have the flute. It's like a record time between getting the flute and activating.
Yeah, that's about as close as you can get, for sure. So that does have to be very careful here. Not on much health, green male. These crabs are vicious.
Yeah, even if it had one more heart, it would still be in one hit kill mode here. We did see a sword on the library, by the way, but we don't have any boots yet, so we can't really get to those. And Zed does end up taking a death there, but luckily, well, silver lining at least, they're gonna get their flute eventually here and be able to flute back there instead of walking all the entire distance back there.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think they're pretty committed to this play. So conceding and going to Kakariko at this point would probably feel pretty bad. We do see Quake on Hylia Island, and we're going to go under the bridge for an item check here as well. But yeah, I think they're committed to this, and they're going to see it all the way through to the end. So probably see him go back to Ice Rod Cave after this.
Yeah, it could be the case. We could, but since they did Houlihan, maybe they'll just decide to head over to Sora instead. Okay, so Jerry is heading towards the South Shore as well here. We're starting to walk down there, then probably reminded by Beatort that they have the flute, decided to just get down in that way instead. Doesn't quite get the hookshot clip here, but it's gonna try for it a second time.
Yeah, and I think this is in a race like this with this tournament. I do think it's proper to give that another shot, get some practice in on that clip. It's not particularly difficult, but there is a little bit of timing involved. I would say though, normally, I don't know, you see silvers already for SEZ. But normally I would say in a race, if you do mess up that clip, to just do it normally. You wouldn't want to spend another extra transition to try and get it a second time.
Ooh, Titan Smiths from the Azora Ledge there, so those flippers definitely being important in the early game here.
Yeah, so we are getting some stuff, and as he said, we'll probably get to Kakariko immediately following this. But yeah, we're already pretty loaded on progression items, and just need that pearl now for our Dark World access.
Yeah, and whenever you get an early flute and some Titan Smiths, you always get like a little bit suspicious of like, oh, are we gonna see a mirror here soon?
Yeah, mirror would be really interesting, but I mean, of course, that does give you logical access to Mire area. You of course need the mirror to be able to get the checkerboard cave, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's the mind starts racing when you see this set of items for sure.
Yeah, it could definitely just be like flute required to get up to the mountain, and then myths being required to get into the Dark World overall. So it's definitely not a guaranteed combo to happen. Speaking of the mountain, we do have a lot of stuff open there at the moment. All the Dark Death Mountain is not in logic yet, but even just heading up there, probably the most likely place for us to find our moon pearl at this point.
Yeah, I think I kind of struggle to see any like better options for Jerry once he and I mean for SEZ once we're all knotted up, because very soon they're probably gonna have very similar item loadouts, and the mountain is easily the most item dense play.
We haven't seen any map check yet. I'm very excited to see it sooner rather than later, because we do have access to beat Eastern Palace. We don't know if it's a pennant or not. It won't fully be in logic, but it's definitely something that is possible to do at this point.
Yeah, I would definitely consider if Eastern were a crystal, I would definitely be considering doing that first, just to get it out of the way. But there is, of course, the school of thought that you want to kind of hold off and see if you can get the mirror and potentially do a double play of Pod and Eastern back to back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like there's like upsides and downsides with both plays. If you skip Eastern for a while, you might be able to do it together with Pod with the mirror like that. But also, if you go to the mountain too early, you might end up going there without a Moon Pearl and not be able to do all of the Dark Road stuff. So it's always those risk and rewards that you kind of have to weigh against each other.
And that's the beauty of Rando, right there in a nutshell. It's you can make the play that seems 100%, perfectly reasonable and logical, and it doesn't work out sometimes. But going to be really interesting to see what our runners do here very soon, because we're about to hit the point where both of them have checked everything the other has. Though Jerry has a couple of out-of-the-way checks done that SEZ doesn't. But neither of those checks had actual progression. So should get really interesting shortly.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think the first place set is gonna head for would be Ice Road Cave at this point, because it's definitely on your mind when you die that close to it, and now that you pretty much got handed like a bailout with getting the flute so you can get back there quickly again, definitely imagine them checking that sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I also wouldn't be surprised to see them also go really quickly to check the Desert Ledge in Aguna. It's something that I know I prefer to do once I have flute right away. But actually, we're going right to the mountain.
All right, going a little bit more aggressive and just going for the high density areas first. I definitely can respect that.
Yeah, I don't blame this situation. It's one of those things you kind of feel like if you miss a location, if you die going there, you gamble. Sometimes it can feel better to just leave it for the time being and hope that it wasn't anything, so that time loss doesn't end up hurting you as much. Both our runners here doing this Dark Old Man Cave with only the hook shot. It's not as bad as doing it with nothing, but it can be a little bit more tricky than, of course, obviously having the sword would be preferable. But even something like the boomerang, I feel like, is a little bit better since you can continue moving while the boomerang is out.
Yeah, definitely helps a bit. Just not only being a little bit easier that you can move at the same time, but also being a little bit faster since you don't have to stop so many times.
And we have a mushroom in Spectacle Rock Cave. That is very interesting.
Yeah, it looks like I would imagine both runners grabbing that for sure, because don't know if we're gonna need it or not, but definitely want to grab it as long as we have the good opportunity to do so. And they could actually even opt to just turn it in before doing the East Death Mountain potentially as well. The save and quit after you grab the mushroom is a pretty good opportunity to do it, because if it's nothing, you could always reset if you want to save the mushroom.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're not comfortable with this bomb jump, then it's probably better save and quit and go do that mushroom check really fast. We do see Jerry is going to take the longer route here back out of Spectral Rock Cave. There is a bomb jump, but if you're not comfortable with it, it can be a little bit difficult to do since it does require a very precise setup to get Link clipped enough into the wall to push him across.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely think Zed got the better end of the bargain there with saving and quitting instead of dropping down and walking out.
Yeah, and this is actually something that's only recently. I mean, it was true a while ago as we get our first sword. Very nice. But since the fix was made to the save and quits, and they no longer take an age and a half, it definitely makes more sense to do save and quit there and just start again on the mountain.
Okay, we got half magic and a cape. Interesting combo. And there's our move pro. So now we do have Dark World access, and not only that, ooh, so saving and quitting though, maybe a little bit prematurely because we could have done the Dark Death Mountain here as well. And we didn't get to see Spiral Cave as well. And this extended pause here on the title screen, I think, was probably a discussion about that.
Yeah, I think maybe SEZ got a little bit too quick on the draw there, perhaps. Seeing that Moon Pearl and instantly locking in, oh, I've got Dark World access, but no, they actually are gonna head straight for Kakariko. So
yeah, I like this because like you save and quit, and if you go back right now, you're kind of conceding that you're gonna lose some time already, and by doing this, you could kind of like try and hope that you can hold out with that until you get like maybe a mirror or a hammer or something where you can do more stuff on the mountain and come back at that point.
Yeah, this is definitely a more aggressive play here from SEZ. And yeah, you know, maybe they, in an ideal world, as we see the lamp on Floating Island there.
Yeah, that could be big. Ooh, there's the mirror though, so that's going to be actually a great opportunity for them to come back up the mountain and actually going to be able to get that lamp at that point.
Yeah, you know, it's not often you instantly see a play kind of pay off, but obviously they don't know this, but that's actually really going to pay off nicely for SEZ. Assuming Jerry goes all the way through Dark Death Mountain here, it's going to be a lot more difficult to get back up the mountain, or at the very least, it's going to be more difficult to make going back up the mountain a play you want to do for just that lamp.
Yeah, but it's always scary when you don't have the fire rod, because that lamp could be required not only logically to get through dark rooms, but potentially hard required to get through to some of the bosses and get some of the items in the dungeons.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of dark rooms, if anybody wants some more information on them, coincidentally, very recently, the Go Mode Podcast actually had an episode on dark rooms. So we'll see if our runners listened to that and took anything from it. And maybe they'll need it, maybe they won't, as we get a Dark World map check. I think I saw Skullwoods and Turtle Rock as our blue and red pendants, and Pod as the green pendant, if I'm not mistaken.
Looks like it. So that gives us full information about our crystals as well. So it's kind of interesting. We have definitely access to multiple crystals clears at this point, and we can do Eastern, we could do Hera, and we could also do Thieves Town, although we cannot guarantee to get all the items in Thieves Town, which always makes it a little bit scary. Just generally walking through the dark world with no hammer is kind of a pain, but that mirror is definitely going to help at least to make us not isolate too many areas at least.
Yeah, and we could actually see just a first 4 check potentially. That is something that I know that is fairly popular if you're coming in here without the hammer. I don't know of anybody who skips out of Thieves Town altogether when it's a pendant. You're at the very least going to check the first 4, and in this case, with it being crystal, I think it's perfectly reasonable to finish the dungeon. But yeah, you are running the risk of not being able to full clear it if you do that.
Yeah, when you have the mitts and the flute, it's always kind of fast to get back here, and like maybe they just decide to go for like that half trip around the Dark World first to at least get down to Hype Cave and get some of the high density locations first. But it looks like they're going for the back here.
Yeah, I like this play, especially since Thieves Town's a red crystal, and we're really actually not super far from even being able to finish Mire, depending on what the medallion is, of course. So I like getting this out of the way, and yeah, with like you said, it's not that hard to get back here if we need to later. Meanwhile, on Jerry's side, unfortunately, not much of value showing up there in Dark Death Mountain, and other than a couple of shields. So we've already got the big boy, and Mushroom not turning up anything of value, unfortunately.
Alright, so Zed making it through Thieves Town here, and probably gonna get joined by Jerry not too long from now, but we'll see if they decide to go all the way to the back as well.
Yeah, you did see a hard reset there for Jerry. This is a popular play to make when you're turning in the mushroom early, just to keep alive the possibility that you could do a fake powder later if you find the cane. And it does offer another benefit in that it makes menuing a lot less painful, especially around the mirror side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like getting from the mirror to the bombs, which is a pretty common menu, is so much better when you have like a mushroom or a powder. Did see Jerry walking all the way to Kakariko, forgetting that they could use the flute. It's not the biggest time loss, but we've seen a lot of close races so far. So in the end, everything definitely counts up. So, ooh, getting the boot stuff from front of Skullwoods, that's a great first play into the Dark World here.
Yeah, that's actually really nice too, because presumably we're going to be heading over to check Bumper Cave here. Well, maybe we'll see where he's going, but if we head over to Bumper Cave, we'll get that mirror, and Jerry will actually be able to do a couple of checks that SEZ was not, since he did not check Skull Woods first.
Yeah, it looks like that's what they're doing, and did see Zed got a little bit of a lucky fairy there in the Thieves Town. They were down to half a heart for a while, now up to full health going into the blind fight here. Ooh, so have to be a little bit careful here against those birdos.
Yeah, important to remember that there's pretty much nothing you can do to prevent that first pterodactyl from aggroing you when you try to pick up that rock, so you got to be prepared to deal with it.
It looks like, as he said, is just using the cape here to its full extent. You do have half magic, so don't need to take any risks if you don't have to.
Yep. And that's it for Thieves Town. I believe that is all 4 items. We did not find that small key, which means that it is, in fact, locked locked in that big chest.
Yeah, and since we did get no small key, or since the small key is hammer locked, rather, that does mean that there can be no possibility of hammer in the Pyramid Fair today, since the Thieves Town is a red crystal.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that Jerry just went straight into Village of Outcasts here. Maybe it happened too quickly and they weren't thinking about it. As we do find Ice Rod, it always shows up early if we don't need TR.
Yeah, you hate to see that in a scene like this, but I mean, Well, at least we're missing everything else for Touch Rock so far.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Jerry just wasn't. They just weren't thinking about those checks, getting that mirror so quickly right next to them. But I really would have liked to see them do those checks right away to play into that whatever advantage they might have had.
Yeah, it's never really going to be much more convenient to do it than right then and there. And they do set up a potential now that maybe next time they save and quit, they're going to just do the boot stuff, but then they're going to orphan the Graveyard Ledge.
Yeah, and on SCZ's side, unfortunately, I think we're at the point here where I don't think they're going to be going back into Skull Woods for those boots. We're doing Smith Chain here, so that's likely going to lead all the way down to the Hype Cave check. So going to be a little bit longer for Jerry to have that boots advantage.
Yeah, definitely. If you're a SCZ fan, you're definitely hoping for just a Fire Road to show up as soon as possible.
Jerry cutting it a little bit close here through Thieves Town. One hit would have done it. And I think taking a Death Warp. Okay. So gonna get a health refill here, and it's gonna be interesting to see if they decide to finish this dungeon or come back for it later, like we were talking about before.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for in their position there to maybe just leave it for now, because they have a lot of other options open at the moment, and it's pretty quick to come back, and also you know, they're not going to isolate anything by mistake here by doing that. So if we see the purple chest here right now from Zed, if Jerry decides to go for the same, they could actually dash all the way down without the purple chest after they do Key 45 here. Just save a little bit of time that way.
Yeah, of course, the trick being, if you as long as you have made contact with the purple chest in Dark World, if you mirror over directly on the same screen, I believe it's not even right, don't even necessarily be right next to him, correct? It's just as long as you're on the same screen as the thief, you will still get the benefit of the chest opening.
Yeah, I think it's like 4 or 5 tiles is like the breaking point on how close you have to be, so that gives you a lot of leeway.
But I don't think it looks like Jerry is deciding to just forego Smith Chain entirely, perhaps, unless he goes back right now. I'm okay with this, especially because they left Thieves Town. They're going to be going back there anyways. The only time it probably really hurts you is if Hammer is somewhere in Smith Chain.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, probably gonna work out for them right now, unless that purple chest has something. We know the Smith didn't really pay off. It's an interesting choice here from Zed heading over to Hype Cave first, especially when you don't have the book. It kind of gives you a little bit more incentive to do that first. So you can maybe combo the purple chest together with the Bombos tablet, even though they don't have a Master Sword. Just having the knowledge would be good enough.
Yeah, and I think if you're SCZ, there's a lot of really interesting choices that they have at this point. They could head back and go do, say, like a Skull Woods check into those North Dark Worlds checks that Jerry skipped, and actually jump over to Catfish and go down to Pyramid. Could go back up the mountain since they left a lot of that stuff behind, and now with that mirror would be able to get the lamp. Of course, they don't know that since I don't believe they actually checked Floating Island.
Yeah, they weren't able to see that one. They are gonna go into the first Chesto Swamp here. I was thinking a little bit if maybe that was an extra reason why they went for Hype Cave first, because definitely don't want to head in here before checking Hype Cave. But I'm at the same time I'm a little bit surprised because they've been playing quite aggressively and just going for the high density areas, and this is pretty much the opposite of that. But at the same time, this is like their only good opportunity to check this, because they've done everything else in this area at the moment, so they wouldn't be returning here for a very long time. So in that sense, it does make sense to check this now and guarantee that even if you get a little bit of a time loss for checking this, you're not gonna get giga punished for not checking it now.
Yeah, it's a weird play because it feels it's basically a Hail Mary, right? If it is Hammer, that's ridiculous and you probably win the race. But if it's not, you do waste a fair amount of time for one check. I don't necessarily mind it so much because I don't think the time loss is that severe. But yeah, you're very rarely going to get anything from that check.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it makes more sense to do it when you do the Smith Chain, because Jerry knows that they can just check that later on when they do the purple chest and all that. But if you have all of that done already, you're gonna have zero reason to go back there for a very long time.
Yeah, and we actually see Jerry here heading all the way to Catfish after checking Pyramid. And may see a mirror and perhaps fluting somewhere else. SCZ fluting to 5 and gonna do Eastern now, I suppose. I wonder if maybe they were forgetting that they couldn't get to the pod area via this means.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's where our second team here is going to head as well, but they will be able to head into pod too. And even though they don't have the hammer to beat pod right now, that might even be beneficial because it is a pendant, so they might not want to do that. Might just want to get the majority of the items instead.
Yeah, I kind of feel like if you were going to do this, especially because they were over in that area in the Dark World, I think I would have preferred just going straight to pod and mirroring over to do Eastern first, and that leaves you the opportunity to go into pod if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. We see Jerry. They finish up Catfish and actually decide to bail on any other checks there in East Dark World.
Oh yeah, and they're gonna grab the sword here. They could have actually done this while doing the game, but they might have just forgotten. I definitely did, so. But nice to have that sword upgrade.
Yeah, definitely, and if they were planning on going into a dungeon here, then having that extra sword can be really helpful. And now we're going to be heading back, and with that sword, a little bit more confident, going to be able to go in and finish up getting the old man. And I have to assume that we're going to be doing Hera and grabbing that lamp.
Yeah, I think that seems reasonable, especially if they were thinking about doing pod and Eastern combo. Just grabbing that lamp as well can definitely be helpful. This is a tournament for a bit of newer players as well, so you cannot assume that everyone feels super comfortable in the dark rooms as well.
Oh no, absolutely, and I think as much as we'd like to maybe push them to try doing some of these dark rooms, it is a lot to ask if you're not comfortable with it, especially the pod dark rooms. I think beyond say the Meyer dark rooms, I think the pod can be one of the most intimidating.
Yeah, definitely one of the most unforgiving ones as well, because some of the enemies in there are really they do a lot of damage, pretty much no matter what gear you have, and it's like literally a maze but with no vision. So if you don't know it by hand, it can be quite easy to get lost in there.
Yeah, so it looks like we're heading up for Hera first, which perfectly fine with that play. With the interesting thing here is we don't have that fire source. If we're doing this first, we're obviously not getting the lamp before doing this. So we'll see if Jerry is prepared to do the Harapot glitch.
Yeah, to be honest, I would kind of like to see them go grab the lamp first, to be honest, because they're gonna have to make that entire trip around East Death Mountain anyways to get to that lamp. And like after grabbing the lamp, they could just dash over in the Dark World and Mirror to get here, because now they will hard commit to potentially isolate at least one chest in here, and I would imagine it'd take a long time before they come back to that one.
Yeah, if they come back at all. And given how that this is their second trip to the mountain, you know, the more trips to the mountain you make, the worse it ends up feeling, and the more time it costs you, because it does take you some time to get back up each time you have to go. So when you're talking about routing the mountain, you really want to try and be as efficient as possible and make as few trips as you can. And I wonder if we're getting some on-the-fly teaching here. Seems like it might be the case, maybe, as Jerry's trying to get this lined up.
Ooh, okay, so we forgot to tap left though. This is gonna be a soft lock. I do believe we can save and quit from here though. You cannot mirror out, unfortunately. But yeah, we could save and quit at least.
Yeah, you're gonna have to save and quit. Unfortunately, being inside of the object there precludes you from being able to use items. It is one of the dangers of Harapot. But yeah, we do have the save and quit point, and I think at this point for them, as cool as Harapot is, I think we need to go grab that lamp first. Like you said, with the map being one of the two things we got in the bottom, the likelihood that big chest has an item is increased. So we don't want to potentially be leaving it behind.
Getting our first check in the Meyer area here, and we do have a Fields Bombos to get in. It's going to be required. So we cannot head in there quite yet. We might not even want to go in there quite yet because we don't have the cane as well. There's our hammer though, and a fire rod. Wow, okay, that's a pretty stacked Meyer shed. So that's probably gonna feel pretty good for Zed. They're probably gonna lead it towards the boots sooner rather than later as well.
Nice hookshot clip there from Jerry getting through Super Bunny Cave. That's one that I think is maybe a little more intimidating than it actually is difficult to do. But very nicely done getting through that.
Yeah, I feel like that is like one of those clips that it's kind of hard to explain, because if you try to explain it, you pretty much just say just hold right. But if you only try and hold right, like that's not quite gonna cut it as well. You kind of need to get a feel for it, kind of.
Yeah, there are definitely a few tricks in this game that are very much in that vein, where it's like you just have to kind of practice it and get a feel for it.
So we do see that Desert is not boost locked. So we're going to be able to finish this in our first trip in here. And that's going to be the third crystal for Zed when they're done here. In the meanwhile, we do have a land pickup here now for Jerry, and gonna head back to that Tower of Hera and maybe go down and actually grab the big key this time, or we'll see if they try and go for that Hera pot again.
Yeah, maybe go for the Hera pot. But I think it's at this point it's probably in your best interest to be full clearing this dungeon. Just take the time loss, head down to the basement, and get that big key, because you're kind of once again committing to this play. So yeah, and they are in fact going to do that. You're committing to this play, so you'd rather full clear it than gamble and leave something behind.
Yeah, it looked like they were gonna set up for the Hera pot when killing the Mini-Moldorm there, but maybe just got like an executive decision to just go do it, because we might have to do it anyways.
Yeah, and this is one of the potential layouts that's actually really bad for Hera pot, because if you do decide to leave it behind, then you're it's so hard to get back to, and it ends up being really painful, even more painful than your typical item being in the basement. But I think one of the interesting things here is that with Skullwoods being a pendant and now Desert not being boots locked, we could be in a situation where SEZ never actually gets to Skullwoods and gets those boots.
Yeah, that could definitely be a scenario. Oh yeah, because Skullwoods is a pendant. I was totally thinking it wasn't. And there's that Bombos from the Desert boss. So honestly, at this point, with the combined knowledge we have, we're pretty much only looking for a King of Samaria for go mode.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know that we've seen. Did we get a look at what the Turtle Rock Medallion was on Jerry's side? I missed it.
We did not see that yet, but it is a pendant, so we might not need to do it.
Oh, yeah, of course. Discounting that. Yeah, so we really just need that cane now.
Yeah, and I think this is good news for Jerry too, because they just picked up a fire source and they do have the boots. They should know that they can definitely full clear Desert at this point, so they might be heading over there sooner rather than later as well, grabbing 3 of those progression items as well.
Yeah, and I think the other really nice thing about this is we can completely rule out Turtle Rock now. With it being a pendant and with Kane being our go mode, we know that it can't be in there. And if Jerry does indeed go to Desert and gets those 2 items, they should have that knowledge as well and know that, yeah, we don't need to worry about Turtle Rock anymore.
Yeah, that's always a good feeling to have. We did get a poke in there on Moldorm, but did correct that by just doing an additional slash and getting Moldorm down for Jerry's first crystal here.
Yeah, that was really good recognition. If you're doing those sword spins, it can be a little bit easy to accidentally poke. As long as you recognize it, you'll keep yourself out of that fast phase of the boss. And as he said, making the play, we've got all the stuff we need to beat Ice Palace, so we're heading in there. More and more these days, I do see people putting off Ice Palace to hopefully get Kane for it, but I think this is the proper thing to do in this situation.
Gonna get some information now about these boots locations. It's gonna be quite big for Jerry because they're obviously the only one with the boots right now. So Kane being in one of these locations would be very big news for them for sure.
Yeah, it would. I think I think it would probably even up this race. I feel like, as he said, probably has a bit of an advantage here with more crystal dungeons done. But yeah, if Kane were to show up here, that would be a huge advantage for Jerry. I was saying I agree with this call for Ice Palace. I don't think it's a terrible idea. I might have preferred to see them go to Swamp first, maybe, but either one is fine. It's a crystal dungeon that you can fully clear. So
a combined 600 rupees from our first two boot checks. But yeah, I do agree with that. There used to be, before Icebreaker came around, always used to be a debate on like, if you have Ice Palace and Swamp Palace, which one do you go to first? And this was of course before Diver Down as well. So it was pretty much just a discussion on which one would you rather go mode. And I think these days it's almost like, well, if you have to choose between them, it probably depends on if you have the cane or not, because like, sure, Swamp Palace becomes a little bit faster with Diver Down with the cane, but you can do it with boots. You can do it with bombs, but you cannot necessarily do an Icebreaker in Ice Palace with the bombs.
Yeah. We did get a Lumberjack check, and our first bottle is over there on Lumberjack. I'm sure that got the people's brain juices flowing on some terrible things that could be hidden behind that bottle.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
We had until we see a bottle from this seed, there is a chance. But Jerry is going to be getting over here to the desert area and getting his Fire Rod and Hammer. Meanwhile, see on SEZ's side, trying to go for this Ice Palace bomb jump. And as much as Icebreaker has kind of shifted the meta, if you will, on Ice Palace, I still feel like this is a really important thing for people to learn, in case you find yourself in this exact situation.
Yeah, imagine doing Ice Palace bomb jump in 2020. What kind of world are we living in? Unfortunately, though, real talk, they did kind of fail it a couple of times, which was very unfortunate, because now we don't have really the health to do it anymore. And that makes the rest of this dungeon quite complicated, because you kind of want to have the cane if you're not doing the bomb jump.
Yeah, absolutely. And another reason to maybe have considered Swamp Palace over this one if you're not feeling comfortable with that Ice Palace bomb jump.
Yo, look, we got a lot of hearts from these pancakes. We can go back up and do the bomb jump now, right?
I mean, you make it sound like you're kind of joking, but I honestly would consider it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair assessment to be thinking about, I think. Because, yeah, getting to the boss is going to be a little bit awkward at this point. You're going to have to do the vanilla, and not like the vanilla speedrun routing. They're going to have to do like the real vanilla way, which is, yeah, it's quite of a pain.
Yeah, I wonder how many random runners actually know how to do it the vanilla way. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't really know how to do it the vanilla way at this point.
Yeah, there is actually a real possibility that Cold Start could hold a key, and if that's the case, you can't even do it the vanilla way, because you would have to have both small keys in order to do it.
Yep, we'll see here. Well, we do get a full health refill there.
I suppose you could actually guarantee to be able to do it if you save the key by doing Icy Room in a specific way, I guess. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah, we'll see if the combined brain power of SEZ and SEJ is coming together to figure out the best path through at this point.
Yeah, basically what they would have to do here is pass over into that like ice room with all the shadow monsters and all that, and steal that key so they can like go downstairs towards Cold Stair, then they would need another key to open up the door that has like the crystal pigs. And then after they open up that, then they can go back up and start pushing the blocks down. They do get a key at least, so they will be able to get through this at the very least.
Meanwhile, on Jerry's side, we do see some silver arrow kills of those Landmos. The one piece of advice I would offer there is you saw Jerry approaching that boss from the top of the screen. It's far easier to hit that boss. If you're going with the arrows, far easier to hit the boss from the side, since it just kind of the way that Landmo tends to jump around the screen makes it a little bit easier to hit.
Ooh, okay, so they're going up here. You don't want to do this, because if they do this, yeah, okay, they're going back down. Okay, good. Because otherwise they would be I think blocked from doing the boss here. Yeah, I think we're kinda screwed now without the cane.
Yeah, I think they're not taking into consideration that yes, you do have that one small key to get through this first door, but unfortunately with the yeah,
they're gonna get like a pretty rude awakening going down here that there's one more key needed. That key is on Cold Stair. It looks like they realize it. Just gonna come back later for Cold Stair. So this was definitely a bit of a time sink, and in the meanwhile, Jerry has been able to catch up a bit and is headed into Mire, searching for that one last progression item. So this is pretty spicy, going in here even before going to Eastern Palace.
Yeah, this is a really interesting call. I think with so much open, again, we're talking about sort of aggressive routing decisions in this type of 1v1 race. If Kain is in here, then Jerry's in a pretty commanding position, because it is a tough call to make, and you're expecting your opponent to not do this. But yeah, there are a lot of much better options out there at the moment.
Yeah, if Kain is not in here, they're definitely gonna hope that like the big key is as late as possible, so that way their opponent won't be saving too much time first time they go into Mire. They get one item already here, but there is two in total, so we have one remaining. Yeah, if the big key is very late, then the only time you lost by going into a double dip Mire is pretty much those first two rooms. Yeah,
I agree. It's not the worst, and I think as far as time sinks go, the one that, as you said, had there in Ice Palace is definitely worse. But yeah, if the key's pretty late, then it's not terrible for Jerry.
Okay, so Zed is in Swamp Palace. This is another crystal that we have to full clear here. 6 items in total, so one of the more item dense crystals, but also one of the more like disliked crystals as well, because of that left side take is quite time consuming. But definitely Diver Down, one of the newer glitches, have made that left side a little bit better at least. I think if you do the Diver Down, you save roughly around 20 seconds if you do it for the left side.
Yeah, it certainly made the math on left side swamp a lot different. It makes it a much more compelling option. However, we are in one of the more interesting scenarios for swamp, where I think I'd be hard pressed to do left side swamp right away, with only one item needed for go mode here.
Yeah, it could be. It's like it's kind of hard to tell because in one way you're kind of incentivized to go to the back first as well if you're only one item from go mode, just because it's more item dense in the back. So that way you're gonna have to go to the back sooner or later. But yeah, as soon as we go to the back here, which it looks like they are going, it does kind of rule out that diver down time save at the very least. But since we're not doing the diver down here in the back as well, that might not be something that, as he said, is too comfortable with anyways.
Meanwhile, the most cruel item possible in the cutscene chest of Meyer, it's the cane of Berna.
Yeah, that's you don't like to see that.
So, unfortunately for Jerry, that play for Meyer not really paying out. And yeah, they left before they got the big key too. So they do mirror out, leaving the big key. They do know where it is, however. So it won't take that long to get over to it. But would have probably preferred to see them just go ahead and grab before leaving as they flew over. And I assume we're going to be doing Eastern here. Potentially maybe Pod as well, looking for that cane. But they've got other crystal options too before we have to start worrying about Pendant Dungeons.
Yeah, they went here in the light world, which kind of tells me that they might not be going into Pod. And yeah, as you mentioned, they do have like an additional 2 more crystals they can, or actually 3 more crystals they can full clear after this. So they might just be trying to focus on the crystals at this point.
Yeah, I think I would have preferred to see, you know, the Swamp and Ice Palace plays first, but yeah, I mean, doing Crystal Dungeons is always a good idea. Just if you do end up having to dip into Pod later, you do lose a little bit of time by having to run all the way back to it, even if it's not necessarily as bad with the flute.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely like very easy for when you're watching like a restream or something like that to get like caster vision, because we see what's happening on like both screens. So we have like a lot more information than our runners have at the moment. Like in their mind, they have like almost all of the crystals being able to be clearable at the moment. It's just that we know that most of those crystals have really nothing of value.
Yeah, so as said, does get the boss down. We're still looking for that cane, and there are 2 items on the left side. So this is the gut check, right? You know, do you go back in? Do you leave it? It looks to me like continuing on with this sort of aggressive line of play they've been going with, just going to leave those 2 behind. So rather than heading back into Swamp, instead going to be making this trip up the mountain. They, of course, did leave pretty much all the Dark World stuff behind. They've got Hera to do up here, so this is a perfectly reasonable decision to be making. And may even get a look to see what well, it doesn't matter, of course, but yeah, still a bunch of checks left up here. And in fact, one new check that nobody has seen yet in play is, of course, Spike Cave. So that could be really interesting. If it does end up being Kane, then that might very well seal the deal for, as he said here. So we do see Ether on your side, not required, but it is an item that, as he said, left behind earlier. And while we've got a moment here, while our two runners are kind of going over each other's tracks, let's go ahead and take a moment to thank both of them for putting on a show for us here. Very kind of them to do so. And if you can, give these two a follow. Check them out on their streams. And also want to give a quick shout out to our tracker here, Fred, and Oro for the restream. And thank the GoMod podcast as well for putting on this tournament. If you can, check out the Discord where all the information on this tournament is, and as well as all the information on the podcast. It's very informative. As I mentioned earlier, they have an episode on Dark Runes this week, so give it a listen. It's if you're looking to get into Rando or improving, it's definitely one of the best sources of information we've got in the community.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, it's been a super fun tournament so far. Can't wait to see how it's gonna end. It is very high stakes games at the moment as well, with us being in the brackets. Every race this week, we're unfortunately gonna have to say goodbye to one runner, but that's kind of how the tournaments work. So, but sooner or later, it has to come to an end.
Yeah, I mean, as much as this tournament is for newer players to kind of learn and improve, I mean, we all want to win, right? You know, we're competitive. It's why we race. So I know both these guys are wanting to win and get as far in this tournament as possible.
So it looks like Jerry is gonna head into Swamp Palace, while as he said, has been doing some catch up here on the mountain. Something they left very early on, but now coming back to it and not getting too much from it. Well, they're getting the lap, and that might actually save back some of the time that they invested in coming up here by making the Mire Dark Rooms later on faster, at the very least.
Yeah, for sure. We are getting to the point here where, I mean, you mentioned that, you know, obviously the runners don't have this combined knowledge, but we do. And based on that combined knowledge, it is looking pretty likely that what we're looking for here is, I mean, my money currently is on Pod. I feel like that's the most likely place for it to be, but there's it doesn't look like it's in any of our crystal dungeons. And I think I'm trying to even think what checks in crystal dungeons we haven't seen yet, and I'm struggling to come up with anything other than Left Side Swamp.
Yeah, so that's going to be a big decision point here for Jerducha, if they decide to go over to the left side or not. And I don't want to jinx it, but we don't have a bottle yet. That's something that's honestly still on the table too.
It's a fair point. Aga is hanging on by the slimmest of threads at this point. He is not dead yet somehow. But yeah, I think it's interesting in Jerry's position. I wouldn't blame him for skipping left side here the same way that SCZ did. But if he does check it and Kane's there, that would be really bad for Zed.
Yeah, and we've seen a very big difference in like when our runners got the boots, because we still have one runner without the boots, and when both runners ends up doing like all of the same dungeons, then having boots in all of those dungeons is definitely like you automatically get a little bit of time save from that alone.
Yeah, I do think some people overestimate the advantage boots gives you overall, but the longer it goes on where one person has it and one person doesn't, it adds up. I mean, it definitely does.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
in this instance, I mean, there's absolutely no guarantee that SEZ even gets the boots. So it could be a situation where Jerry finishes with them and Zed doesn't. But we'll just have to wait and see. And the longer we go without finding the cane, the more likely it is that Zed will be getting back over to Skullwoods to get those checks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely in like a seed like this where you got like Mirror and Flute early, it does devalue the boots a little bit because you don't have to save and quit and then like run to the Dark World over and over again.
So Jerry is going straight to the back. I definitely agree with this. We'll see what they decide to do once they finish the boss and realize that they still have 2 items left in this dungeon.
So doing a little bit of a combo here of having the sword out and going for hammers hits. Did get like at least one of them as a poke with the sword though, which is kind of like one of the downsides of having the sword out. And also it does kind of decrease your mobility as well. You can't dodge as easily, but at the same time, if you get bumped by Moldorm, you can stay on the screen a little bit easier. Not guaranteed though, as we see here, of course.
Yeah, if he gets you from the side or that type of angle, then yeah, it doesn't matter how if you have your sword out or not, he will still get you. The hammers, it's one of those items that some people just can't seem to get very comfortable with, and I definitely understand why, because its hitbox is really bad. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So some people just feel a little more comfortable using the sword out, perhaps, and yeah, wanting to play it safe and not get bumped by Moldorm while trying to use it.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's definitely one of those items that really like spikes from being like an okay item to being a fantastic item. Because if you do like hard train all of these hammer situations, then all of a sudden you can guarantee to almost always have a tempered sword with you, which can be super beneficial.
Yeah, it's hard to overestimate how impactful it can be as a weapon once you're comfortable with it. Especially in seeds like this where it's fairly stingy on swords. And from SEZ's side, he can't get that second sword without those boots.
Yeah, and definitely having some issues here on Moldorm. And at the same time, we do see a big shift here as Jerry is heading over to the left side. This will either be a time sink, or it will be maybe the play that will change the entire direction of this race.
I think either way, no matter what happens, it has huge implications for this race. If it is here, then it puts, I think, Jerry firmly in the driver's seat. If it isn't, then I don't see SEZ coming back. I don't see him making the play to come back to get these 2 items. Once he finds Kane, he's going to be full steam ahead. So either Jerry loses some time here doing this check of left side swamp, or SEZ's in a lot of trouble.
We're gonna see a spy cave here after defeating Moldorm. Something that we have not seen yet. We do have it in Logic because we do have that half magic and that cape. So even though we don't have any bottles, definitely something that the Logic requires or will expect us to be able to do at the very least.
just 50 rupees from Spike Cave. So that trip up the mountain does net Zed another crystal and the lamp, but otherwise, still searching for that cane. We'll see what he decides to do next. I think at this point, your decision really just comes down to: do you want to finally make that gamble on Meyer, or do you want to go to Pod? And this looks like Pod.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's like 6 items here in total because you have a green pendant as well.
A moment of truth.
First one being just a heart piece. Second one would be quite rude if it's the big key, because then we'll have to go all the way back to see if... Alright, it's just a heart piece as well, so... not going to be a triple dip of swamp here for SC Zed.
Yeah, that's really good news for Zed. Just another time loss there for Jerry. And just, I think in general... Zed's been a little bit more aggressive in his routing, and so far it has paid off. We'll see if this pod play is what finally kind of opens the floodgates here. And Jerry is heading back. This is going to be a trip to go finish Thieves Town, I'd have to imagine, although we look to be going into Skullwoods.
Yeah, this is a little bit questionable from my side, at least, because we're guaranteed to be forced to have to do Thieves Town sooner or later, and we can't full clear it. And it's not like going in there in go mode would save us that much time as well. While going into Skullwoods is definitely not something that's guaranteed to be required, and could just end up being a time sink here. But we do find this second item right away here, so at least that is good. We do mirror, which is less good because while dropping down into Skullwoods like this, the mirror just takes you back to where you drop down. We're gonna have to find a small key here or saving quid.
Yeah, I think generally in this scenario, if you are thinking that maybe Skullwoods is the play, even then, I'd still want to leave it. And you know, Pedestal's dead, so even that's not a consideration. So yeah, I'm not fully on board with this play personally, but they're in the area now. If they can get out of here to go to Thieves Town, do have to grab this small key here from this chest, which was not guaranteed to be a small key, by the way.
Yes. So I do wonder, does this guarantee that Pod has to be the play, or I guess we didn't see Graveyard Ledge as well so far?
Yeah, I don't think we've seen Graveyard Ledge. Of course, there are some. There is the nuclear option still sitting.
Oh, yeah, right. I almost forgot about that one. It looks like we are going to see Graveyard Ledge here from Jerry, and I'll see if they decide to head back to Thieves Town after that, or they have some other things in mind.
And no dice. Still looking for that cane. And yeah, trying to think now about what hasn't been done. And honestly, I'm struggling to think of anything else. I have to imagine Pod has got Arcane here.
Yeah, I think it has to be Pod or I at this point. So Pod definitely being the most likely option, especially since you could, even if you don't get a cane in here, you could still at the very least get a bottle, which would kind of like rule out Aga. A little bit of an unfortunate premature mirror there from Zed. Probably tried to drop a bomb, but forgot to menu first.
Yeah, that's one of those ones you accidentally do sometimes when you're thinking about other stuff. I mean, it's happened to the best of us. you're thinking about routing and different options, and then you just forget that you still have mirror equipped when you're trying to drop a bomb. Just a little bit of force of habit there. But at this point, I feel like all eyes glued to Zed to see what he gets here from this pod trip.
Yep, for sure. One way or another, we are gonna have knowledge where our go mode item is, or at least what's blocking it. I think that was the probably the last monkey at this point.
Yes, I believe so. I think we got the full front cleared.
And so that's really good news for Zed. I mean, they couldn't even do Egg at this point because they don't even have the boots yet.
Yeah, but with that, stick a fork in Aga. He is finally dead after an hour and 21 minutes. But we got nothing from the front here. Still 2 more potential items from this dungeon, though, with the boss and the green pendant. So, absolutely no doubt as Zed is going to finish this.
Yeah, and at this point, Pod would almost have to be the play for Jared to be able to stay in this. In one sense, it feels like, because if they're heading to Ice Palace, that will be quite a time sink for them as well. Even if they're doing the bomb jump, they're still gonna have to full clear it, which is a big difference compared to just go moding it. And whenever Zed and CJ heads back there, they already did everything except for the boss, so they're definitely just gonna do a quick trip in to kill the boss and then nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, it won't be so quick, but it will not be enough of a time sink for Jared to catch up unless he gets over to Pod and gets the cane, which, I mean, at this point, we kind of have to assume it's going to be either on the boss here or on the green pendant. But chat definitely correctly pointing out that there is one scenario where Zed would be in a lot of trouble here, and that would be, of course, if the GT Big Key is on the torch. Only a 1 in 22 chance, but something to keep in mind for sure.
Yeah, that would be kind of a nightmarish scenario, to be honest, because not only would that not put them in go mode and force them to climb the mountain another time, they would probably full clear everything in Gannis Tower before leaving as well.
Oh, I mean, you absolutely full clear. In that scenario, you're full clearing the bottom of GT before you leave. I don't think there's any way to make the call otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, honestly, after that, your best option would probably be to head into Turt Rock as well. But that's, of course, only speculation at this point. Helmersor did not have the cane, so I have to see if Sickhead or the green pendant. One of them should have it by now. I guess, actually, we never did see hammer pegs, right? Because Zed did this before getting the hammer.
That is true. So this is one other potential possibility for the cane. And SCZ is going back into Eastern Palace to get that final item they skipped earlier. If you're not going to do it now, you're likely never going to get back to it. So I definitely agree with coming back in. unfortunately, it's only going to be that Ether Medallion. And, oh.
There's the cane. So skipping the Smith chain early definitely paid off a bit here for Jerry. Still gonna have to turn in the Smith here, but then probably checking it too, because it could be like a sword or something. But after that, they're gonna be in full go mode situation here now.
Yeah, that's actually a really huge swing, because SZ is going to play to what he's just finished. So turning in that green pendant, checking Sick Kid, there's a possibility that he could go do Skullwood's checks into Hammer Pegs, but given how aggressively they've been playing, I wonder how long they continue to put off Meyer. I don't think it would be completely unreasonable to, after you've checked all the stuff you got from Pod, to go straight for Meyer and just hope that Kane is in there.
Yeah, and it's definitely far from over at this point. Jerry still zero bottles, so the amount of safeties they can stock up on is quite limited. It would only be the hearts that they have available. No powder as well to get some extra fairies in the middle of dungeons. So we'll have to be a little bit careful in that sense. But at the very least, do have that blue mail, which definitely helps. And even if we end up being Master Sword in this fight towards Ganon in the end, we at least have silvers, which is going to make the fight a bit better.
Yeah, it seems pretty likely at this point that there's at least one sword in GT, given how much of the seed we checked. But yeah, it's by no means in the bag for either runner, and this is kind of just the beautiful encapsulation of Rando. It's never over till it's over.
Mm-hmm. And since we got one of our swords from library, and Zed might find the cane before getting the boots, would kind of have to bank on there being a sword up in Ganon's tower at that point.
So Zed gets the bad news that Pod was not required, at least for the green pendant. He's still got one more out on Pod, but of course we know that that's not going to actually benefit him, unless it's a sword. Sword would be nice, but it won't get him the cane.
Very nice icebreaker there from Jerry. And I'll see there are gonna maybe check a few chests on the way, at least the easy ones. Yeah, I'm gonna go grab this one as well in the Ice Age room here. I'm not really gonna get too much out of their checks here, but this definitely indicating that they kind of want at least like one more sword.
Oh, yeah. If you're heading through here, it only makes sense to continue to check these chests if you're in a situation like this where you're still on Master Sword after so long. I missed it. Did Jerry hit the switch before doing that icebreaker?
I'm not sure, but I would assume so. Yeah, it looks like it did. So that's definitely good.
Because there is a scenario where you might want to continue checking stuff as well, where you don't hit the switch and just hope you get the big key, though that is pretty risky.
Yeah, that would be fine. The only problem with that is like if it's in Ice Tea room, because that's the only one that's like really out of the way in that round.
Yeah, it leaves you open to some risks if you decide to go that way. Now Zed is heading up through North Darkworld here, going to get these checks taken care of, and this could be a path that leads him into not only getting that cane but getting the boots. If he does route through Skullwoods into those remaining Village of Outcast checks. Jerry putting the Fire Rod to very nice use, taking down those puffs quickly and getting Ice Palace finished up. I mean, don't look now, but Jerry is one dungeon away, and that dungeon is Misery Mire from having all 7 of his crystals.
Yeah, and they should have the knowledge of where the big key is already as well, so you can just head straight for that big key and then to the back. Silver arrows is going to make the boss fight a lot less complicated, and after that it's up to Ganon's tower.
Wow, and as he said, going immediately the opposite direction from the route I was hoping he would take, and is going to head over here and get Catfish done. Don't blame him if you're in this area and you haven't done Catfish yet, but it is leading him further from the critical path we know he needs to take.
Yeah, kind of ends up being a little bit of a side effect of being a little bit extra, or a little bit more aggressive than Jerry was in the early game. That you kind of have a couple of these spread out locations that they haven't checked yet, and now kind of forced to pick between a few of them. Unfortunately, not picking the right one first.
Yeah, this is the sort of calculation you make when you're deciding how aggressive you want to be, how many gambles you want to take. It can lead to really fast steeds if your gambles pay off and you make the right calls, but unfortunately, in a number of scenarios, it can really bite you.
So we only have one small key here. Looks like we are taking this little bit of a shortcut to get the big key, but that means we won't have that small key to go to the back. We're gonna have to backtrack here and go from the left side over to the back of the dungeon.
Yeah, and this is kind of the consequence, and why I was saying earlier, I would have liked to have seen them just route over, grab the big key before leaving this. Ultimately, I don't know that it necessarily saves you a ton of time, but I think it'd be a little bit more convenient for routing purposes.
Yeah, I mean, it at the very least saves you the time to go over it and hit that switch and additional time on them. It looks like Zed is heading towards Hammer Pegs. This is going to be good news. It's going to be their King of Somaria as well. But that also means they will be going into go mode without the boots. So not only miss the boots, again it's hard, but more importantly, they're missing a sword. So probably going to have to hope for a little bit of a later big key so they can maybe find a sword on the way first.
Yeah, and I think this pretty easily gives Jerry the advantage here, heading down the stretch. Again, anything can happen in that GT climb, but Jerry's going to have boots advantage. He's got sword advantage, and Zed still has to finish Ice Palace as well, so he's got a lot more left to do. Not to mention, he still has to clear Misery Mire. It has not been in the dungeon yet, so.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jerry's pretty clearly got the edge right now.
Yeah, and in terms of the sword situation, I wonder if the ideal situation would be have a sword in the room after the big key, because that way you don't have to go that extra far out of the way to get that sword. But at the same time, that would kind of ensure that Jerry kind of a little bit likely not to get that sword as well, though, which makes coming back a little bit easier, because it's easier to make mistakes when you have Master Sword compared to Temper.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that there's really no situation where with sword placement that benefits Zed at this point, because Jerry's almost certainly going to be getting any sword that Zed finds from here on out, and without going into Skullwoods for those boots, Zed has one sword just completely blocked off from him.
All right, so that's 7 crystals for Jerry. There's nothing special that happens when you have 7 crystals, right?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm confused about why people are posting a bunch of numbers. What's going on in there?
I'm not sure. But I guess if you're, for some reason, interested in posting a number, probably pick one between 1 and 22. I don't know why, it just feels right.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I guess so. Kind of feeling like I should do that. Just getting in with the crowd, I guess.
Yep. Something like that. All jokes aside, though, if you haven't seen the GT Big Key guessing game yet, first of all, where have you been? You lived under a rock. But yeah, there's 22 locations in Gannis Tower that could have the Big Key. So if you want to play a little bit of a fun game here, just post a number between 1 and 22 where you think the Big Key is going to be.
Yep. Get him in now. We got a little bit of time, but once Jerry enters Ganon's Tower, the guessing game will close, and it will be based on where Jerry finds the Big Key.
All right, dashing over to Ganon's Tower here. Cannot unfortunately dash through Lionels, but just get damage boosted. Take like 2 hearts by dashing through them. But it's gonna have to keep in mind that we don't have any bottles or fairies, so safety is kind of out of the window at this point. Definitely somewhat likely that we'll find 1 or 2 safeties in Ganon's Tower though, especially if we have to go up bit of time before finding that Big Key.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those scenarios that I think a lot of us as more experienced runners don't really think about much at this point. But for newer runners, GT can be a pretty nasty place. And yeah, like you were saying, without powder, without a bottle, without those kinds of safeties, it can be pretty stressful. So we'll see how Jerry handles it. There are a lot of checks in here, so there's a decent chance we'll find some sort of safety, either another sword or powder or bottle or something like that. But just have to see.
I did see a bug net on the torch, which gotta be like one of the meanest bug nets I've ever seen, because we don't have any bottles to use the bug net with.
Yeah. So through here into Stalfos room, get a couple of small keys, and looks like we are going to be going full left after that check of Hope room. This is, I feel like, kind of the standard, if there is a standard route through GT. If there is such a thing.
Yeah, it feels like it's definitely varies from time period to time period. What's most in the meta? Let's see, a shovel there. That's not going to be very helpful. Oh, we did leave the screen too early before the bomb exploded there. As we have learned from the from Swamp Palace, if you leave the room before the bombs explode, well, it's not going to have much of an effect.
Yeah, you do have to be on screen, unfortunately. And yeah, we're another kind of weird scenario with the seed, no boomerangs. So what would be, I think, the sort of typical strategies for those rooms? You kind of have to improvise on the fly, and so they're using the cane instead.
And there is the Big Key in the Fire Snake room. Yeah, I was about to say maybe we'll actually just go over to Random Room at this point to see if we can get a sword. It's not that much of a time investment, and it is 4 fairly quick checks to get.
Yeah, I 100% agree with this play, and it's something, even as somebody who's comfortable with Master Sword Silverless, is absolutely something I'd be doing too, because the time save if you do find a sword here is massive. compared to what you're losing by checking it.
Yeah, it's not only like can I do Master Sword, it's the time investment it takes to do it.
Meanwhile, on Zed's side, having a little bit of trouble here, really low on arrows. So rather than being able to just silver arrow those last 2 puffs, is going to have to save them for Vidi himself, and does some fighter sword. Oof. That got a little bit scary there for Zed.
A little bit too close for a while there, but they get the job done. Still gonna have to go back into Ice Palace though and clear the boss there as well before they can head up to Genna's tower. In the meanwhile, Jerry is gonna start their climb up the tower here. Pretty low on health, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see a safety room coming up here soon here.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I was just gonna say they kind of have to be a little bit careful here too, which they do end up using the cave here, because you could definitely tank 2 hearts in this room pretty easily.
Yeah, I think we're probably going to see a fairy room play here, without any of those safeties. Yeah, gonna just play it safe. The gauntlet is already difficult enough on Master Sword. Just get yourself to full health. I did want to give a quick shout out to Lumaga, actually one of the admins on the Go Mode podcast Discord, getting the correct answer on the GT Big Key. So enjoy your free internet points, Lumaga.
Yeah, definitely not rigged whatsoever.
No, surely not. Yeah, and Jerry beginning the gauntlet climb here, already through 2 rooms. And again, this with Master Sword becomes more difficult, mainly due to those the red Zizaks. Unfortunately, not being able to kill them in one hit. And once you get into these rooms with the ice and the conveyor belts, it can get pretty nasty. Yeah,
and Jerry did a really cool thing of walking in between some of the spikes in one of those kill rooms with the blue Zazaks, which is a very tight window to walk through there. So it was kind of impressive, to be honest. Let's see, we're gonna do this fire rod strats here. Do have half magic, so you can definitely afford to do that. Silvers would be probably the most optimal way of doing it, but getting the timers with the silvers here at the same time as the fireball can be a bit tricky too sometimes.
Yeah, it's and I think earlier with the Landmo 1 kill, I think maybe you're not as comfortable doing the silvers on these on Landmo. Does get through it. A little bit tough fight there, but overall, I think that gauntlet was very impressive on Master Sword.
For sure. Did end up using a lot of magic, but we do have the lamp and we also have half magic, so we should be fine for the torches.
Just missing that quick kill on Wizrobes 2, but does get through it in 2 cycles, so not too bad.
I like the play here from Zed. Did not need to do the hit the switch going back in here because they already had the big key and a small key, so we're just able to just take the normal route down there.
Jerry does make it through. I think that was a little bit close on the timing for the first torch room. Gets through, however, gets that full magic refill and is on his way. We're going to be checking these chests, I'm assuming. Yeah. Definitely no reason to not check these. And meanwhile, SZ getting through Ice Palace here, beating Cold Stare, and will now be on his way to GT as well. So, oh, that's a lovely find.
Yeah, that's gonna feel quite good to get that sorted before Ganon, and it does mean that that could actually end up being Zed's Master Sword.
I think, yeah, almost assuredly. Like unless Zed decides to go full right at the jump and gets the sword there, then yeah, it looks like Zed's going to be on Master Sword, silvered. Of course, we do have one last chest here that Jerry will be checking, maybe, after beating Moldorm. Has taken a couple of falls here, but fortunately enough for him, he's got enough of a lead here where that's not going to hurt him too much.
Yeah, gets the job done here, still has 5 hearts to play around with, so I'm not going to check that last chest. Probably feeling happy just having that tempered sword.
Yeah.
As long as they can make it through Aga 2 here without taking too much damage, it should be fine.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. The difference between tempered and gold is not super huge. While having gold is nice and it makes the first couple of phases of Ganon feel a little more free, there's no difference in the final phases between gold and tempered. So,
all right, 4 or 5 hits on Aga. Only need 1 more. It's been a really good Aga fight here. Ooh, does kind of get hit there a little bit. It's just gonna have to try that again. Oh, okay, now we're actually in a really dangerous situation here. You cannot take a single hit more right now. Blue ball. Okay, that's only half a heart compared to the full with the energy ball, but this is... Oof, that's a rough death. This is just evened up quite a lot more. It's still Jerry in the driver's seat here, but it just became a lot closer.
Yeah, that's one of those you can almost feel the sort of panic kind of set in once the game starts beeping at you and you realize how close you are to death. I think he just kind of got a little bit maybe too panicked there. The kind of the one that I think got him was setting up in the middle when they kind of fanned out almost in a triangle. Even though he was 1 away, you really don't want to be setting up like that, hoping that the main one will not give you a blue ball.
Yeah.
I feel like it probably should have been setting up closer to the bottom or top of the, more so the bottom of the main one there, and tried to hit one of the clones balls into Aga. And yeah, that fight just kind of spiraled out of control from there. Really, really unfortunate, but Jerry does still have the advantage for sure.
Yeah, and this could have some unintended side effects as well. Taking a late death and such a punishing death like that can definitely be enough to like sometimes catch you off balance and kind of like trigger you a little bit almost, and or make you play more risky in the second time up here because you feel behind after taking such a death.
Yeah, I mean that's an important thing to keep in mind. Obviously, we know that Jerry's got a pretty sizable advantage. Jerry doesn't know that, and when you're in this sort of winner-take-all 1v1 race, it once it starts getting down to the wire, and you're looking at the race room, you see your opponent hasn't finished. Those nerves start to take over. So 100% it happens, and you just kind of got to refocus yourself, recenter, and just focus on your race. Focus on what you're doing, and not so much on the race itself.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the greatest attributes you can have in this scenario, is just to be able to shake that off and just try and focus on what's present instead. And Zed is about to get, actually just did get the big key here. It's gonna go to Render Room, and I wouldn't be too surprised if they go all the way to Ice Armors here and then over to the right side before climbing, because it's kind of a little bit of a gamble otherwise to use bank that there's gonna be one sword in those last 4 chests.
Yeah, if they're being really aggressive and he feels comfortable enough with Master Sword Ganon fight, then you could maybe make the call to just gamble it all on the climb. But yeah, I don't think they can really afford to be skipping too much here. They need those swords.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they are going to go over. We might see the legendary Ganon's Tower big chest, check as well.
Yeah.
A cool location to have sorted.
Yeah, and your typical opener standard, this is like the only scenario you'd ever see that.
All right, we're going for it. Come on, please be a sword. Oh, it's vanilla red mail. Well, that works too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's you'll take it. If you got Master Sword Ganon staring you in the face, red mail is certainly a welcome sight.
Yeah, and in the reclimb here, Jerry has done a really good job. Definitely that Mola's fight was a lot cleaner this second time around.
Yeah, definitely give some credit. Kind of shaking off that death to Aga, which can be a real focus killer, and yeah, getting through that gauntlet just fine.
So Ice almost dead, and our reward was not much.
No.
So I'll probably go over to the right side here, and we'll have enough keys to climb afterwards as long as we make sure to grab this. What's it called? The small key after the compass room.
Yeah, and this like we were saying, this makes sense. Even if it does look like Zed's putting himself further and further behind. It really can't be overstated how much worse the Ganon fight is with Master Sword than it is with Tempered. So, and of course, from their perspective, they might even need to get this sword down here, because if they don't, and there's not one up top, then they can't kill Ganon anyways. So,
yeah.
And yeah, very good point from the chat. They know where one sword is, and they know they can't get it currently.
Yeah, that's fair too. So in their minds, there's only 2 more swords out there. Having some rough fight here against Moldorm because we got him in the super spin speed here, but finally got it. A little bit unfair that Moldorm can go into spin speed without any stairs close by.
Oh, Zed does so. Yeah, Zed forgetting that he needed to grab that small key beyond the compass room. Now, the interesting thing is there is a small key in the chest upstairs, so they could go and be fine, but they don't know that, and there's no way you're going to take the risk of getting yourself locked out of the rest of Upper GT.
By now, if you have your key logic in Ganon's Tower in mind, there should be a guaranteed small key in this room too, and they should know that the last key would be upstairs. I think that could be wrong. And also, Ganon's her small key logic is not something that factors in very often, so it might not be on the mind.
We've got round 2 with Aga, and again, Jerry coming in with low health.
Yeah, it does have the cape equipped this time around, so it might switch over to it if it takes one more hit, which he did now, so yeah, this is the time to use it for sure. I'm not activating it though. Cannot afford to take another death off here. Oof, okay, that was a little bit too close.
Really playing with fire right now.
Oh no! You gotta be kidding me.
Oh, it's It's really unfortunate, but it's starting to look a little bit like maybe a mental block here. Just like really not really thinking about the best place to be standing for a lot of those patterns.
Now, it is. I would honestly, after that second death, I would still say Jerry is in the more favorable position, because the sword is still gonna make quite a difference, and the boots are quite valuable in the climb as well. So even though Zed is a couple of rooms ahead right now, I wouldn't be too surprised if Jerry might catch up. But like right now, it's definitely too close to call, I think.
Yeah, and of course, a very important thing to keep in mind is that, once again, Jerry's got that sword advantage. So even though he is technically behind here as far as the rooms go, he will have a faster Ganon fight. Unless our Moldorm 2 chest has the second sword in it, which would be absurd.
Yeah, we did see it on the second climb up here. It was just 10
Oh,
arrows.
did he grab it? Okay, I missed that.
And actually, that means that Jerry won't have to kill Moldorm a third time around here, because the chest will still be spawned since he opened it. So he can just hookshot over.
But yeah, this race has suddenly gotten really, really tight. And I'd almost... he still doesn't have a bottle, of course. I was going to say I'd almost want Jerry to go grab that net, but we still haven't found the bottle. There was an empty one in Compass Room, but no way Jerry's going back there. So yeah, we're going to have to do this without safeties.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, these two runners just wanted to give us a great ending here, so like Jerry was kind enough to kind of stall a little bit for the race to get a little bit closer here. Yeah, to see the super strats here for Zed and making a pretty good job here. So it's through some of the most hard rooms to have Fighter Sword only in.
Yeah, the like what we were saying about the gauntlet on Master Sword is even more amplified for Fighter Sword. So that was very nicely done by Zed to get through the gauntlet. I think I saw him he did get a fairy drop at one point, so that definitely helped. But even still, Fighter Sword Gauntlet is very difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he can't take advantage of catching any of those fairs either, because he doesn't have the boots yet, so he wasn't able to get the Bugman.
Yeah, it's been such an interesting seed from a Divergent standpoint, and as often happens, despite the incredible divergence we've had, we get down to it, and we got both runners climbing GT, ready to finish the game.
Zed taking it very safe here with going with lamp strats only. Does have a green goo, but probably doesn't want to use it because they're probably planning on a Master Sword fight against Ganon, so might want to save that and use it in a bit.
Again, with them knowing that one sword's on library, I think they're pretty. I mean, they're probably feeling like they're in a situation where they're going to have to go search for a sword. Like, I mean, once you get to this point, you're just like, oh, there's a very good chance I'm going to have to go digging for a sword somewhere in the overworld, and probably Turtle Rock in this situation would be the play. But gonna get the Master Sword here and feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, and Zed has kind of maintained the lead in the climb up here so far. But it does take a fall here on Moldorm, and Jerry will be able to skip Moldorm fight completely, and the biggest time save for the sword difference is on the Ganon fight and not in the climb.
Yeah, so is that taking another fall here? And again, like we were saying, Jerry, if he, yeah, there you go, pulls out the hook shot, he's going to be able to just get across, get away from Moldorm, and get back to Aga. And once again, takes the room lead.
Yeah, looks like he was preparing for a fight there, but I think Vitorp just reminded him that he didn't have to do it, and pretty healthy this time around going into Aga, but I don't know. I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, I think what I'd offer for anybody who's maybe struggles with this fight a little bit is to try and start closer to Aga and move away once the clones shoot their shots. It's kind of a geometry thing, and you want them to fire their shots really close to him, and make it easier for you to spin them into him.
Mm-hmm. I think we're one hit away here, but we have both runners on the Aga fight, and there's Aga down for Jerry. So, but Zed is really close behind at this point. But it's that sword difference gonna make up the biggest time difference in the end here.
That was a really nice Aga 2 fight from Zed.
For sure. Yeah, so we're going to jump into Ganon with like just a couple of seconds in between each other.
Yeah, and honestly, if I were in Jerry's corner here, I would be telling him to do exactly this. Go get healed up. No, with no safeties, there's absolutely no reason to tempt fate here. Get this fairy, get yourself healed up, and then drop into Ganon. So Zed is going to be first into Ganon, but once again, we do have sword advantage on Jerry's side, so this should be really interesting. This is going to be down to the wire.
For sure. Yeah, it's going to be definitely most likely at the very least more cycles here for Zed, and that just might be enough to seal the deal, but you never know. Ganon has changed a lot of different races before. So.
Oh, there's so much that can happen here in this fight. So, Zed's still on phase 1 here. It can take quite a while with Master Sword, especially if Ganon's not giving you good positions. Like this position right here is really nice. You can get some doubles. I think he's on phase 2 now, though. Both runners on phase 2 of Ganon. Just gotta play it safe here. You're not in a position where you can take any hits for either of these runners.
Yeah, Jerry right now, he pretty much in one-hit KO mode here from most attacks. Still gonna need a few more hits to get out of phase 2, and does have half magic, but can't use too much magic. He's gonna need a little bit towards the end here.
Oh.
Yeah, that's walked a little bit too close to Ganon there. And now all of a sudden, I think Zed is through with the second phase here, so I think he's definitely in the lead at this point.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for Jerry, being that he didn't find those bottles, specifically the green magic bottle from Pod. He has not been able to rely as much on his magic as Zed has. So was being really aggressive there on phase 2, and unfortunately took a few too many bats to the face. And yeah, I think at this point Zed has the lead, and Jerry taking another death here, unfortunately. It's been a really tough finish here for Jerry, and it's like we were saying, it's due to the way the seed was laid out and what items were available. Not having those safeties can be really rough.
Yeah, for sure. Zed is gonna have to play it carefully too here, though. Can still take a 5-bat hit, but falling or taking a death here, the refight for him would be so much longer.
Yeah, and important to note that he did use his green potion, so he is committed to this fight.
That was not quite a double, so still needs 2 more hits in. Gonna use the lamp here because we're running a little bit low on magic. Getting in these spins again, it can be kind of awkward to do before he shoots the fire bat when you have to spin him.
Yeah, especially if you're using the lamp. And on such low health, Zed playing this really carefully. But that is the 4th silver arrow. And once Zed takes his steps across the threshold, he will have won this race. All that's left to do is to not fall off and get through that doorway. And GG's to SCZ, finishing first in this race with a time of 2 hours, 6 minutes, 3 seconds. That is an official race time GG time.
Yeah,
get your GG's in chat.
Yeah, this was a crazy finish, and definitely a heartbreak for Jerry when we saw what position he was in here. Of course, it's always frustrating when you take a couple of these early or like late devs. They can sometimes be the most like backbreaking ones, just because of like that you're so close to finish.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and it'll happen to you as the longer you go on playing rando. These types of things tend to happen, and this is why these guys are here. It's to get practice with racing and get some experience. It's a very rough way for your tournament to end, but I'm sure the experience will serve Jerry well as he finishes off Ganon and raises his sword, and will finish here momentarily. Gets across the doorway, finishes with official race time .gg time of 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 21 seconds. Get your GGs in chat for Jerry, for both these guys for putting on an amazing race.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna have all of our runners and mentors joining us here very soon. A chat off the seed.
Yeah, I'm super interested to get their insights into this seed and how they routed it and kind of what they were feeling. And indeed, we are now joined by our runners and their mentors, Jerry and Vtorp, as well as SCZ and SCJ. GG's, guys. Well run race.
Good game.
Yeah, GG's.
Oh man, that was fun.
We had fun. We had a blast.
Yeah, it's great to hear. And I mean, this was a really interesting seed, and unfortunately, it came down to just some tough luck there in GT with Aga 2. It's kind of
that was brutal for me. I've honestly never had to do that gated tower climb with so little safeties before. Like, I've just never had to do it. So I'm not used to like not being able to take like no damage on Aga 2. So I just didn't really know how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that could definitely be one of those things if you're not familiar with the situation, that can kind of get away from you really, really quickly. That's unfortunately what happened here. But I think honestly, for the most part, and you handled everything up to that point really, really well. I'm really impressed with your gauntlet climb there on Master Sword. And I would extend that to SEZ as well with the Fighter Sword gauntlet climb.
Wow.
Fighter Sword gauntlet climb. Wow.
Yeah, we found Where'd you guys find another sword?
We found it early because there was the one in the library, and then I don't remember the other one. We just got real early.
Where'd you find boots? Yeah, you guys got boots.
Skullwoods.
Yeah, we Skullwoods did right away.
I told you super early. We could have dove it. Nah, it's fine.
So that
Good
was
game,
really,
by the way. Congratulations.
that was kind of the storyline of this seed pretty early was you guys had pretty divergent routes, and those boots were weighing heavily on us, especially since with Skullwoods being a pendant, you know, there's no guarantee you're going to be getting back over there once you've skipped it.
Yeah, I feel silly because we put off hammer pegs for so long. Like, we were trying to decide if we wanted to do dungeons or if we wanted to try to clean up the overworld, and it just looked so messy that we figured we could do pod first. But I felt real bad when we found hammer pegs so late. And then there's just other small communication things because of the Twitch delay. But I think overall, Easy did really good.
Yeah, it feels like this seed kind of stressed you guys on a lot of different levels. I mean, obviously the swords being one thing, but no bottles. And I don't know that you guys as he said, you guys ever checked Lumberjack, but there was actually a bottle over there that was a really entertaining possibility for the longest time.
We kept talking about that. VTorp and I kept talking about that bottle.
There was that off chance that it would lead to the red cane. We were concerned.
I think at one point, you know, with the combined stream knowledge, where we figured that Kane either had to be in pod at hammer pegs or from that bottle at Lumberjack. There was actually a bottle in pod though, which kind of dashed those dreams. But
man, I wanted a bottle so bad,
and I wouldn't let you dip pod.
I was I don't know, I wasn't like gung ho on dipping pod, but I was like, yeah, we can go pod. I'm okay with pod. And VTorp's like, nah.
Well, we had like hammer pegs and graveyard ledge and catfish and like a couple of other overworld checks left, and then pod. And it was like, well, we need red cane, yeah, but also a sword. Like pod might have a sword, and no, it had nothing.
The swords had to have been right side. Well, there was one at the top of the tower. The last one must have been right side Ganon's tower or something.
Nope, we checked that too.
We did that in search for a sword.
Where was the fourth sword then?
I'm guessing they were in Turtle Rock.
Yeah, nobody wanted CR.
Spike Cave?
Nope.
No, we did that.
Oh, wow.
That was on our list. That was going to be coming up before pod, I think.
It was kind of a slap in the face, too, when we found Book in GT. It was like, oh, we can mirror out and see if a sword is on Ether Tablet, but can't get it because we still have
Not gonna get it.
Yeah, I was... So did you guys went right in GT then?
We did. We just basically full cleared it.
They needed a
sword. Oh, because you were looking for a sword.
Yeah, we still needed a sword. I was still on fighters.
Yeah, we actually got red mail vanilla.
Oh, that's nice.
Because I was like kind of bummed when we got the early GT key, because I was like, man, I really want like a bottle or some powder or something, man. Like I want something. I want a little help to like help me finish this out here.
Yeah, I want to give big shout outs
it.
to Easy for doing GT Master Sword silvers with just one green potion. That was, you know, it got down to 2.5 hearts, and I was kind of like bouncing in my chair the whole time it was happening, but he did good pulling it out at the end.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Well done, man. Congratulations.
We were honestly a little surprised that we were still in it, but towards the end there.
Well, we last location Canis Samaria pretty hard. As soon as we found hammer pegs were open to us, and then we proceeded to clear the entire game, and I think it was that, and then Skull Woods, and we were going to dive Mire, and that's all we had, as well as, I think, Left Side Swamp.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, commentators, for taking your time, and Restreamer, and as well as the tracker.
Yeah, for sure. We had a blast. It was came down to be a super exciting race in the end there, because after the second death on Aga 2, we're only a couple of rooms separating both of you climbing Ganon's tower.
Well, and I actually got better at the gauntlet, like live on stream, because VTorp was giving me some really good tips on how to do it better.
Yeah, there was definitely one thing we were noticing was your gauntlets were we're definitely getting better. Your Landmo kills, I think, improved also. So, you know, I mean, nobody wants to die on Agatu. I mean, we can all agree on that. But, you know, again, with this tournament, the main thing we're wanting to see is seeing you guys get better and improve. And I definitely think we kind of saw that. So, and I mean, I calmed your race week 1 as well, and I can definitely tell you the improvements there 100%. So, if nothing else, Jerry, I hope that you got that from this tournament and had some fun.
Yeah, I mean, week 1, you know, I was getting lost in Lost Woods, you know.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, with this being the bracket stages, you are eliminated from the tournament, but hopefully we see you in some future stuff. And on the other side, SCZ, you continue on. Again, despite the last locationing of the cane, you kind of soldiered on, and was very impressed with your G-key there on Fighter Sword. So congrats on that, and good luck next week.
Yep. Thank you so much, you guys.
Yeah, thanks everybody. The mentor tournament has been amazing to all the mentors who have pitched in, and the admins and comms and everything. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot, as you can see since the week 1 restream, and in which I had a false start, and you know, it took me like 3 hours and 40 minutes to finish the seed. So it's been quite the journey, and one that was worth every minute, and I had a blast doing. So thanks to everybody who participated and contributed. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, and thank you guys for putting on a wonderful race for all of us here. Any final questions for them, Walter?
I don't know. It was a very weird seed. With it was kind of ironic how one runner had the bottles but no way of getting the bugnet climbing the tower, and the other runner had the ability to get the bugnet with no bottles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw that, and then I was like, oh, that'd be so nice. I could catch a ferry for my empty bottle. Yeah, we ended it with 2 bottles, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I told early on, we had, you know, gotten the Moon Pearl up on the mountain, and because there was that Twitch delay, before we could do the Dark Death Mountain, Easy Zed went and saved and quit. And so I was like, okay, well, since we saved and quit there, let's not worry about it right now. We'll go back when we can beat Hera. Let's just go check Bumper Ledge. We just found Cape. We go right over there, and it's like, it's Mir. It was right after we gambled on Zora right off the bat. And it was like, okay, well, it's really fun that all of our gambles are paying off right now. It's going to be real annoying in an hour when we're looking for our last location item. And that's kind of what happened.
I'm looking at my very accurate splits, where I sometimes remember and sometimes don't. There's a solid 30-minute gap between Crystals 5 and Crystal 6.
Yeah, sounds like the typical rando experience to me. So,
Indeed.
Yeah, that'll happen for sure. So, but yeah, very, very fun race to watch. Thank you guys so much. And those of you watching, go ahead and give these guys a follow on their channels. They takes a lot of guts to allow yourself to be restreamed, so we thank you very much. And also shout outs to the mentors, SCJ and Vitor. Thank you guys for providing your time and helping these guys out.
Sure thing, buddy. It was good times.
And want to also thank our tracker, Fred, aka Durf, for tracking this. And thank you to Oro for restreaming this, allowing us to even commentate on this. I wouldn't be able to do it without you. And,
yeah, cheat.
Yeah, and finally, thank you to the Go Mode podcast as well. Of course, without them, we would not have a tournament with which to do this. So check out the podcast. Got the link there in the chat. And also check out the Discord if you're interested in racing or interested in the tournament. There's all sorts of great information and stuff in that Discord give it a look. And yeah, this has been a lot of fun. Lastly, last but not least, thank you, Walter, for joining me on this.
Yeah, thanks for doing this again. This was super fun. Can't wait to see what's happening next week in the multi-tourney.
Yeah, take a look here. I think that was our last restream of the night. However, it does look like we've got one potentially tomorrow evening at 10 p.m. Another Fighter Sword bracket race between DJ Darkwing and TML, the Missing Link. So get hyped for that. Should be another very fun race. But with that, I think that's going to do it for us.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Have a good night, day. Yeah. Take care, everybody.